Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Dr. Harshad Argekar, and today, on the 29th of January 2021,
I am speaking for the Bombay Orthopedic Society's Pelviacetabular course, of which I am the convener.
my talk today is going to focus on two topics. In the first half of the talk, I'm going to give you a brief history of the two pioneers, thanks to whom we understand pelviacetabular injuries, Professor Robert Jude and Professor Emile Letournel. The second half of my talk is going to be an analysis as to how I approach an acetabular fracture in order to understand it and in order to conclude as to what type of fracture I am dealing with. So I use a simplified method for this, which you can also apply just by looking at a few important aspects of the X-ray, and having done that, you will be able to come to a rapid conclusion as to what fracture you are dealing with.
So, if you look at the life history of Robert Jude, he had a colorful life history. He lived between the years of 1909 and 1980, and he died at the age of 71. So, he was a brother of an orthopedic surgeon, both of whom were born to Henri Jude, who himself was an orthopedic surgeon, and Robert Jude's son, Thierry Jude, also took up orthopedics as his specialty. At the time when orthopedics was not very well developed, Dr. Jude did his dissertation on the topic of clubfoot. So his interest in orthopedics is evident right in the beginning. During the war years, he was working as a surgeon in the French army, and he excelled and won war cross medals during that period of time. When France was occupied by Germany in World War, he was a part of the French resistance and fought against the occupying Germans. When he resumed his medical career after the war was over, he had many achievements, of which one notable one was the design of an acrylic femoral head prosthesis, which was one of the few prostheses available in the world at that point of time, and he was credited with its design. In 1971, he developed this further to develop a cementless hip arthroplasty, which was used in France for some years. He is also famous for the now routinely used Jude or oblique view of the acetabulum. He noticed that X-rays taken at the alpha S1 junction to study lysis and listhesis, the oblique views showed the acetabulum and the walls of the acetabulum quite clearly. So he used an extension of this in order to study the acetabular anatomy. This is a picture of the prosthesis which he designed and the oblique view which he noticed while taking the oblique view for the alpha S1 junction in order to study a lysis and listhesis. He is also very well known for the surgery of the Jude's quadricephaly, which is a slide operation involving two incisions, one on the lateral and one on the medial side. And I have personally done these for my quadriceps, my patients having quadriceps stiffness, and I find this works very well with minimal loss of or minimal extension lag, because the muscle is slid down, muscle is not lengthened, there is hardly any loss of power. Emile Letournel came a little later. In fact, Emile Letournel was a student of Dr. Professor Jude, and Emile was during his study years was kind of smuggled to England because the war was on in Europe, where he studied and then came back to France and then worked with Jude. When Jude initially met him, he only permitted Letournel to work with him for 6 months. But in this 6 months, both were so compatible with each other, and probably Robert Jude realized Letournel's potential. They continued working for a year, and then finally he then became the associate professor and finally professor. So both of them were into full-time practice, especially at Litournel, who then became head of department at a Paris hospital and continued till his retirement age in 1993. Emile Litournel also had many contributions to his name. Primary amongst it, for which he is famous all throughout the world, is his study of acetabular fracture. So he published his thesis along with Professor Jude in 1961, and till today this is a landmark document. People refer it in order to understand acetabular injuries. Professor Litournel worked as a full-time professor. He did not charge patients any surgeon's fees for his work. He is also credited for doing more than 6,000 total hip replacement. He developed implant and surgical techniques for fixation of calcaneal fractures. He is credited with developing a scapulothoracic arthrodesis technique. He was the first surgeon in France to implant a knee prosthesis, and his teaching courses on acetabular fractures were legendary. His first course was in 1984. It was a massive hit worldwide, and people from all over the world flocked to him in order to learn more about acetabular. So, as how they came about understanding these fractures is also a nice story. A patient who they suspected to have a posterior wall fracture was opened up through the posterior approach, only to surprise both the surgeons, where they found that there was nothing which was broken. When they went back and studied the X-ray and then correlated the broken iliopectineal line to indicate an anterior column fracture rather than a posterior column one, that triggered a study in their mind. And then Jude challenged Litournel to come up with this classification system, and Litournel put his mind and efforts to it, and then came about this system which we use even today. So what Litournel did is scientific inquiring mind. He lined a model of the pelvis with lead lines, especially along the prominent landmarks like the iliopectineal line or the pubic pelvic brim, then the posterior ischial brim and the walls of the acetabulum, and took X-rays and then determined the normal radiological anatomy as to what shadow on the radiology represented what portion of the acetabulum. It is through this systematic study and then systematic anatomical slicing of pelvic bones that he came about the classification which we use today. Also, Professor Jude had a very good habit of keeping a record of all the operated cases which he had done prior to meeting Litournel. He was very keen artist and he drew diagrams of the intraoperative finding and his analysis and interpretation of the X-ray, which were then analyzed later on by his student, which helped him to develop the classification which we even today rely on. So the original classification had only 4 or 5 groups. They had the posterior wall fractures, the transverse fracture, T or Y-shaped fracture, and the comminuted fractures were grouped under the name of central fracture dislocation or burst injuries, etc. It is only after a further study that these injuries were then subclassified as elementary and associated fractures. These are some pictures from the original article drawn through the medium of Emile Litournel and Robert Jude. They studied the various angles at which various injuries occurred. It's a very comprehensive article, almost 120 pages, occupying the Journal of Bone and Joint Surgery. Important to note, even at that point of time, they realized the importance of impacted fragments, and these impacted fragments they have mentioned even in the original article. So now today we know that we classify acetabular injuries into the elementary variety, which occupies the first line, and then the associated varieties. Of this, the associated varieties are a little difficult to determine on the X-ray. The elementary varieties are relatively easy to pick up, and they don't really confuse the radiological examiner, but the associated ones are the ones which are a little confusing. So these are the ones which generally give us a problem in identification on the X-ray: the transverse posterior wall, the T-type, the anterior column posterior hemitransverse, and the both column fractures are the ones which have baffled even a seasoned acetabular surgeon. So I'm going to try and simplify as to what is my method which I use in my mind in order to determine which fracture I am dealing with. So if you look at all these three X-rays, more or less they look to be of a similar classification, where the acetabulum is broken in various places and displaced with the acetabular portion going out of alignment with the ilium. However, all these three represent three different fractures which we will analyze as we go along. So the first step which I do is separate elementary from associated fractures. If I find the iliopectineal and ilioischial line broken, then I know I am dealing with an associated injury and not just an elementary fracture. Next thing, what I look at is I see if the acetabular cup is separated from the sacroiliac joint by a fracture line which goes from the greater sciatic notch and may exit either in the iliac crest or below the anterior superior iliac spine, but above the level of the acetabular cup. If there is a fracture line which separates the sacroiliac joint and the acetabulum, this fracture straight away becomes a bicolumnar injury. Now, if you look at this X-ray, the one which I had shown you previously in detail, you'll realize that the acetabular cup has no connection with the sacroiliac joint, and the second arrow, this arrow marks the separation of the iliac crest from the acetabulum, and a fracture line extending from this crest and going right posteriorly up to the greater sciatic notch, which will be indicated by break in this ilioischial line. The iliopectineal line is also broken. So this indicates that the acetabular cup is separate from the sacroiliac joint, and this would then become a bicolumnar fracture. Further X-rays which you take, like the obturator view, will show us this classic spur sign, which is indicative of the ilium being separate from the acetabulum and the entire acetabulum and the hip being stuffed inside or medially migrated, whereas the portion of the iliac crest attached to the sacroiliac joint remains lateralized. This gives rise to the classical spur sign. When you fix the fracture, you have to remember to reconstruct the acetabulum to this base. So this is the base on which this fragment is finally going to come and join. So you need to get the acetabulum out and align it with the iliac crest. A 3D CT will confirm that the fracture line is from the front, going below the ASIS but above the level of the acetabular cup, and posteriorly exiting at the greater sciatic notch, completing the dissociation between the acetabular cup and the sacroiliac joint, making it a bicolumn injury. The next thing which I determine is whether the inferior pubic ramus is broken or not. Now, if the inferior pubic ramus is fractured, then this fracture can be of two types. Either it's a T-shaped fracture or an anterior column posterior hemitransverse. Remember, in the first two steps, we have said that this is not an elementary fracture, this is an associated fracture, by checking that both the iliopectineal and ilioischial line are broken. In the next step, we have ruled out bicolumnar fracture by confirming where the sacroiliac joint is still attached to some portion of the acetabulum, and this is the third step, which we determine if the inferior pubic ramus is fractured, the other two being ruled out. Then you have two possibilities. One is a T-shaped fracture or an anterior column posterior hemitransverse. Now, how do you differentiate between the two? Remember, in a T-shaped fracture, the anterior fracture line will be at the level of the acetabular cup, whereas in an anterior column posterior hemitransverse, the fracture line, the anterior fracture line, will be above the level of the cup. Now, this above the level can be at the level of the anterior inferior iliac spine, it can be at the level of the anterior superior iliac spine, or it can be at the level of any portion of the iliac crest. So, fracture line can go here, it can be here, or it could be in this direction. So, there the fracture line breaks the anterior column, but the anterior portion of the cup may be intact. However, there may be small fragments associated with an anterior wall fracture, but the main fracture line, if you see, should be going at the level above the level of the acetabular cup. Also, in this fracture, you realize the sacroiliac joint is still continuous with some portion of the acetabulum, making it a non-bicolumn fracture. If the posterior fracture line was going into the greater sciatic notch and communicating with the front fracture, then this would have made it a bicolumn injury. So that is how a bicolumn and the other fractures are distinguished. So now look at this X-ray. Here you can definitely see the iliac, the iliopectineal ilioischial line are broken. This portion of the sacroiliac joint is communicating with the roof of the acetabulum. So this is not a bicolumn fracture. You can make out on the broad iliac view, this communication exists. So this is not a bicolumn injury. The anterior fracture line is at the level of the acetabular cup, maybe slightly above it. In this view, you can see the anterior inferior iliac spine is broken. So you can argue that the fracture line is just above the level of the acetabular cup, not exactly at the level of the cup, though part of the anterior wall of the cup is still broken. A 3D CT will confirm the break in the anterior inferior iliac spine and a break in the anterior wall also. So there could be a dispute between experts also between a T-shaped fracture or an anterior column posterior hemitransverse. But since a part of the column above the level of the acetabular cup is also involved, I would label this as an anterior column posterior hemitransverse. So here SI joint is continuous, the inferior pubic ramus is broken. You also have to remember that in any fracture, if the iliac crest is broken, two possible fractures exist, either a bicolumnar fracture or a fracture of the anterior column and posterior hemitransverse. Other possibility is that of a pure anterior column injury, but in that case, the ilioischial line is going to remain intact. Please remember again that here we are talking about fractures where both the ilioischial and iliopectineal line are broken. Only in those instances are we talking about where the iliac crest is broken, two fracture possibilities, anterior column, posterior hemitransverse and bicolumn. Last step which I analyze is if the inferior pubic ramus is intact and both the lines are broken and the sacroiliac joint is attached to the acetabulum, then this becomes either a transverse fracture or a transverse with posterior wall. So I find this analysis or this method of analysis a little easier, and I don't need to remember individual lines association with individual fractures, which would be confusing to a casual or a non-orthopedic, non-acetabular surgeon. So look at this injury. Here you can clearly make out even on the pelvis with both hips that the sacroiliac joint is continuous with this dome of the acetabulum. Though the dome itself is broken, there is no break in the inferior pubic ramus. Both these lines are disrupted. So that means this would fall in the category of a transverse or a transverse with posterior, at least at the first instance on glancing the pelvis with both hips X-ray. You can further analyze this by a 3D CT to confirm that your fracture line is going on along the anterior wall and along the posterior wall of the acetabulum with a break, the inferior pubic ramus being intact. I would label this as a transverse fracture with a posterior wall injury. So this is a transverse with posterior wall fracture. Similar X-ray but less degree of comminution. Here you can see again the sacroiliac joint communicating with the acetabulum, both lines broken, inferior pubic ramus intact. This is a transverse fracture without any posterior column break. After having analyzed this from back to front, then you are left with the elementary fractures, which you can easily determine by analyzing which line is broken and which line is intact. This is the chart which I was talking about, where you can remember on which view which line is broken, and on the basis of that which fracture is possible. I find this very confusing.
So when I look at an X-ray showing a complex acetabular fracture, if I see that both ilioischial and iliopectineal lines are broken, I know I am dealing with an associated fracture and not an elementary one. Then I see if the sacroiliac joint is separate from the acetabulum or not. If that is the case, then this fracture straight away becomes a bicolumn injury. If the sacroiliac joint and acetabulum are not separate, then I look at the inferior pubic ramus. If the inferior pubic ramus is fractured, I know I am dealing with two fractures, either an anterior column posterior hemitransverse, in which case the anterior fracture line would be at the level above the acetabular cup. So this can be at the level of the anterior inferior iliac spine, below the level of the anterior superior iliac spine, or it can be also at the level of the iliac crest. In a T-shaped fracture, this anterior fracture line will be exiting at the level of the acetabular cup. That means the anterior wall of the cup may be associated with this fracture. If the inferior pubic ramus is intact and it is not broken, then I know that I am dealing with either a transverse fracture or a transverse fracture with a posterior wall component. So on this basis, I can easily analyze as to which fracture I am dealing with. Then I can take detailed views or a CT scan to then further delineate the fracture pattern and confirm whether what I have analyzed is correct or not.
Analyzing by ruling out complex fractures and then proceeding to identifying simple ones. So my approach is to rule out presence of a bicolumnar fracture, presence of a T-shaped or an anterior column posterior hemitransverse, and then ruling out a transverse fracture or a transverse with posterior wall, and then finally coming to identifying elementary injuries and thereby concluding as to what fracture I am dealing with. I thank you very much for your attention. I am Dr. Harshad Argekar from the city of Mumbai.